So if you make the product the way that I'm laying it out here, you're really going to make a lot of money, okay? So listen to me. Okay, that's a little bit too much. Oh my God. Hi, I'm Jackie, and welcome to my bower. And I'm still looking through that glass onion that are the 4 Sam Mendes Beatles biopics. I don't know why I'm being so nutty about this. I think it's mainly because I'm going to be watching these movies, and in my world, they're going to be 4 hours long. So that's 4 movies that are 4 hours long, and I want to enjoy it. I want it to be good, of course, and I want it to be good for everybody, and I want it to be good for the guys. And also for the Beatles, because those are 2 different things. You have the guys, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and you also have the Beatles. And Sam Mendes says that he's going to be, of course, telling the Beatles story through these 4 movies, but also he's going to be overlaying the guys' stories, John's story on top of the Beatles' story. So I think that's a really interesting way to do it, and somehow he's going to also blend them together, make them all work together, and that is what really intrigued me. So I kind of came up with my own idea of how to get that done because, of course, I have ideas, and I'm a big fan, not an expert, not a historian, just a little nutty Beatle fan right here who just has ideas, who's been kind of going down a rabbit hole in her own mind here with this whole thing. I guess I got nothing else better to do except talk about the Beatles. So I want to watch these movies. I want to enjoy each one of them. And you also want to be drawn into the next one. And you want them, of course, to blend together. And I feel the order of these movies is very important, like who comes first, second, third, and fourth. And in my world, Ringo comes first, then John, Paul, and George. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Mainly because I want these movies to surprise us, to challenge us as Beatles fans, and also to get the labels off of these guys. Yeah, normally John comes first. Well, let's start it off and just get that label off and start it off with Ringo. He is the first ingredient in my Beatles sandwich because I want everybody to be surprised. And I know that we always think of the lineup as John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and that's fair, and that's proper, and that's absolutely correct. But with these movies, I want it to start with Ringo because I think that Ringo is the right guy to introduce us to everybody else, to look over his shoulder, to fit in with the Beatles. We can fit in with the Beatles. We can get to know them, and we can get to know a lot more about Ringo and find out that he's more than just, this guy, sitting in the background, playing the drums, smoking his cigarette. There's a lot more to him because he was more professional than the Beatles were when they met, like in 1960. He was already like a top drummer in a top group, and the Beatles couldn't say that. And also, that makes me think that he was very ambitious. Plus, I feel like he was pretty tough. And he had a lot more value than anybody realized. But by 1969 and 70, I feel like everybody knew how valuable and how crucial Ringo was to the group. And, there's that 4 sides to the square, and Ringo was that just as important as everybody else. And that's what I want to lead off with Ringo, showing his importance, right? I would like John's story to challenge us. We think we know John, but do we really know John? We think of him as like X, Y, or Z, as funny, as witty, as maybe charming, as someone who's always sarcastic or always joking around, or maybe kind of stinky. Maybe not the best guy in the whole world. Maybe you don't like him. But maybe this movie will help you to understand him, or maybe you can love him or fall back in love with him, or maybe understand him better and love him more and care more about him and see him as just not this 2-dimensional guy that you've seen on the screen so many times. There's a lot more to John than what he wanted us to see. And then, of course, Paul. Paul comes next because in my Beatles sandwich, you've got Ringo here first. He lays everything out, tells his story, which is most important, and then he gives us a rough outline of the Beatles story. And then here comes John. John is going to kind of get everything a little bit spicy. He's going to bring a lot to the table here, Mr. John is. And he's going to kind of go, oh my gosh, this is something extra. But there's always something missing. There's something missing. John and Ringo together, pretty good. Okay, there's a lot going on there. They can probably think up, song titles together, but we need Paul. Paul comes in here with his story, and I know that Paul's going to challenge us. Paul has always been that guy who knows how to protect himself, to hide Paul McCartney somewhat. Even in the beginning, he would always deflect. He would always kind of put forth this image a little bit more, even in his songs. He wouldn't really write about himself too much, and that's fair. This is how he dealt with the Beatles, because him and John, those two ingredients right in the middle of that sandwich that work together so well that they have that friction that's both good and bad. It's just, you get addicted to that taste. Hey, you get addicted to Paul and John. But Paul is there to kind of start to bring everything full circle, to calm everything down a little bit, to complete the telling of the story a little bit more. And again, like I said, to challenge our notion of who we think Paul is. Because I don't know if Paul has ever really revealed himself to us very much. Okay, we know he's a witty guy. We know he's smart. We know he's gifted. We know he's inspired. All of that is 100% true, but you gotta know. I mean, he's a star, and he's gotta be insecure. He's gotta have some doubts about himself along the way, and that's what I think the story is going to show us is how he's overcome those fears and doubts, and how he's dealt with that, and his buddies help him to do that. And then, speaking of his buddy, George. Now, George is one of those guys, and I haven't really talked about him yet too much. Now, he's got his own flavor. He's very different, and I want his story to be told differently. George, of any of them, I think, really has a lot of labels, and I think is the most misunderstood guy. Maybe he likes it that way. Maybe he doesn't. I think probably both, to be honest with you. I think he likes being a little bit anonymous, a little bit in the background, but he also doesn't want to be misrepresented. So definitely all of them are like that. That's why I said, let's challenge our notion of who we think that they are and maybe know a little bit more of who they really are, kind of reveal them. Let's kind of discover these guys through George's story. Because if anything, George was very much inside. He went through a lot of growth during the Beatles years, finding out about himself, and also probably finding about who he is in life. He really was this. It was really George on top of the Beatles story. It really was more about George during really was more about George during the Beatle years. But it was also with George, it was always the friendships first. So that's how I'd like his story to go, and to complete the picture and go in depth a little bit more with these guys, because, of course, the dynamics changed within the group during those years, who they were to each other. Because, I think Ringo was right. Ringo left the group during the White Album sessions because he said, "Hey, you're getting along and I don't fit in, or you guys fit in and I don't." And then John said, "No, I thought you guys all fit in." See, the dynamics were changing, all the time. And I think, George definitely changed, friendships. He changed with Paul's relationship changed, his relationship with John's changed, same thing with Ringo. And even his relationship with himself changed, and with George Martin. All of it changed so much. Of course, the other guys' relationships changed, of course, too. None of them are like above the other necessarily, but I just want to focus on George and George's story, really going more in depth about that dynamic, the aura that made it all work, that ever-changing relationship, like George the glue that kind of kept them all together and kept that dynamic there. He would kind of weave his magic, around the songs and with the group, and do whatever he had to do, put up with whatever he had to put up with to keep everything together, and also trying to do whatever he could do to not have a nervous breakdown at the same time, George. I'm just having fun with this. I'm just laying this out, what I'd like to see. I'm not being super serious about all this stuff, but, I just have ideas. I'm having fun with ideas, but I really feel like it is the best way to do it. Okay, in my mind. Okay, there is a method to my madness. This is what I would like to see, but I'm still having fun with it because I don't want to get too serious about things because I think that's what the Beatles are. They don't want to get too serious about this kind of stuff. Let's just have fun. Let these movies be fun. Let them be joyful. Let's have this wonderful experience of these movies where we're challenged, where we wake up and we say, oh my gosh, these guys are great. They're better than what we realize. Oh my gosh, what's this other one here? Let's look forward to it. Oh, I thought Paul was my favorite. Oh my gosh, Ringo's my favorite. Who knows what's going to happen? That's the kind of thing that I think that the movie makers would want. They want us to buzz around and talk about it. So shake everything up, kind of challenge us with these movies, the whole concept, make it be about the guys first, the Beatles second, the fans down here, and the movie makers and everybody else and the money down here. The money will come, guys, okay? If you do it right, you make the Beatles sandwich right, we're going to come around, we're going to buy it again and again and again because, it's a... because we're hungry for it. We cannot get enough of that perfect Beatles sandwich, okay? See, I am a little bit nutty, and I'm really sorry. Thanks so much for being here with me again, you all. And until next time, peace and love one another. And I am being serious about that. Reveal John, warts and all, because, he's just like us. He's just a guy making choices, paying consequences, and that's just like us. So love him or hate him. I want to see John. I want John to challenge us. And no, am I one of those people who loves John? Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, I love John.